I am finally pregnant with a child after being married to Anthony Johnson, my husband, who has azoospermia, for 5 years. Emily Johnson, my 30-year-old unemployed sister-in-law who lives off her family, tears the ultrasound scan apart and angrily accuses me of carrying someone else's baby. She then takes out a notebook packed with detailed records of every time Anthony and I have slept together since we got married. In the past 3 months, the only time you slept with Anthony was 3 weeks ago. Other than that, he never laid a finger on you. If you're over a month pregnant, then there's no way that baby belongs to the Johnson family. I feel incredibly angry at the thought of being eavesdropped on all this time, so I seek out Anthony and demand an explanation. He merely looks at me with a pained expression and says, "You should just produce the evidence if you're innocent, Madison, just like Emily did." I laugh out of sheer exasperation. If they want evidence, then the baby I'm carrying is the best evidence there is. Leah Smith, my mother-in-law, held the ultrasound scan in her hands as if it were a precious treasure, her eyes welling up with tears. "Why, you're pregnant? You're actually pregnant? Thank the heavens." Anthony Johnson, my husband, hurried over and pulled me into an embrace, his shoulders trembling uncontrollably. "Thank you so much, Madison." I was aware that Anthony was crying. In the 5 years since he was diagnosed with azoospermia, he had never shed a tear in my presence. Yet now, he broke down like a child. I couldn't help but be on the verge of tears as well. I reached out and called softly to him. "Anthony." It was then that Emily Johnson, my sister-in-law, grabbed the ultrasound scan from Leah's grasp and ripped it in two in front of everyone. She then looked at me with a mocking smile, her gaze brimming with contempt. "You shouldn't fall for her lies, Mom. Anthony has azoospermia, so there's no way she's pregnant." Leah was stunned. That ultrasound scan clearly shows that Madison is pregnant, though. Is it possible that the diagnosis was wrong or that Anthony has recovered? Emily scoffed. Anthony saw countless doctors back then, with every one of them saying that his chances of fathering a child naturally were practically zero. How could Madison be pregnant if Anthony doesn't even produce sperm? Madison spends all her time dressing up and going out. There's no telling whose child that really is. Hearing that felt like having a bucket of cold water poured directly over me. Leah stared at me with a complicated look on her face, her lips quivering as if she wanted to say something, but she ultimately remained silent. Anthony released his hold on me, his eyes brimming with suspicion. I had been part of the Johnson family for 5 years, and even though Emily was lazy and still lived off her family at 30, I never once spoke ill of her. I was baffled as to why she would suddenly accuse me of infidelity and claim that the baby wasn't Anthony's. I was still in the early stages of my pregnancy, and because this baby had been so hard to conceive, I didn't want to let my emotions affect the pregnancy. I took a deep breath before saying calmly, "Anthony is the father of the baby." Emily sneered. "What evidence do you have to back that up?" I looked at her and replied, "I don't need to prove anything to anyone. You, on the other hand, are the one accusing me of infidelity and calling this child a bastard. Where's your evidence to back that up?" Emily scoffed, as though she had been expecting this all along, her smirk deepening. She stood up and walked into her room, returning shortly with a small notebook, which she threw at me. "Go ahead and see for yourself." I leaned over and opened the notebook, revealing page after page filled with cramped handwriting. I noticed that every page was dated, beginning from the first week of my marriage to Anthony and continuing to the present day. It was unnerving just how detailed the entries were. On this day, Anthony worked overtime and came home at 11 p.m. There was no sexual intercourse that night. On this day, Anthony came home drunk and had sex with